Hello, I'm Craig Constantine.
Hello, and I'm Tyler Williams.
Welcome, Tyler. Pleasure. I say this to everyone. I love the fact that people are willing to take time out of their busy schedules to sit down and talk with me. In actuality, they're all talking to the audience, but I think that's cool. Tyler Williams is, I'm going to say, a musician extraordinaire, partly based on what I've heard you talking about doing and what I can see in the video frame behind you, and also a podcaster. Your podcast is titled Hear Me Pod. And on one hand, I kind of want to go with like, that's a neat title. But we have these little pre-discussions. We were talking about audience. And as soon as you said the A word, my first thought was, ooh, I wonder what the differences are between the concept of audience. So when we're recording podcasts, even if we have a guest, the audience is nowhere to be found. And that might be similar. I was like, I'm wondering, is that similar to when you record in a studio where maybe it's even worse? It's just you and an audio track of like the bass or something, the bass something so you can keep time or whatever. And combined with, like part of my question, what about in a live situation where you have an actual audience? So anything jump out at you about those three really completely different ways of performing on a mic, in a podcast, in a studio, and then maybe live? Anything jump out at you about those three different ways of doing performance?
Well, it's interesting, Craig. The cool thing about live is you are just in the moment and you're reacting to things. Maybe some douchebags coming to spill a beer on me while I'm trying to tune my bass or something. And you have to just like, okay, I'm not going to play those notes, but I'll come back on the bridge after I wipe it off and wipe off the strings and make sure I don't slip. But I love the recording setting, whether it's music or podcasting, and being in a studio. I mean, this is kind of a makeshift. It's an office I'm using now. I've got a couple pillows behind the computer to help with the sound a little bit, and I do like the intimacy of recording a podcast or talking to someone over a nice microphone. And
Right.
it reminds. I've been thinking about audience a lot lately, and let me just. Um, oops. Yeah, and how how the hell did I get into this, into podcasting? I was a DJ in college, and it was a lot of fun. I had a program where it was like any kind of music I wanted, and it was like probably at 2 a.m. or something, but I would have some jazz, I'd have some classical, I'd have funk. Grunge was really big in the 90s in Seattle. It kind of dates myself, I guess.
Whoops.
But I loved that stuff. I loved just coming up with a show, and then as the song's fading out, you talk over it. And that's actually how I do my intros and outros for my show. Is I actually play it and just kind of talk over it, kind of like pretending it's live, even though it's recording. So anyway, those are a couple thoughts on things that I've
So
tried.
do you find that it's difficult to draw in, like if the audience is not present, where do we find the energy to what is the word, emote? So if you're trying to like track an outro, it can't be like, yeah, that's great, I was Bob, played music, okay, you're out of here, like it kind of needs to be like, man, every time I hear that track I love it. Anyway, that was Bob so and so, or like, or whatever. Where do you, have you ever consciously thought about where do you get the energy to like rise to the occasion every time you do that, one of those tracks?
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I kind of hone in on what's being said as far as the podcasting tracks. Yeah, like if the guest is like my last one today. I just published this morning actually, Angela Chan, and she's just kind of laughing at the end. And the way I stopped the recording a little too early. I wish I would have kept some more laughter, so I had to do kind of a fade, and then just kind of, yeah, that was great, huh? And it was, a couple of takes, but it was a fun interview. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be more difficult with certain people, like you said, yeah, and that was Bob. So time to go home now.
Maybe those should go on the floor. I read an article about somebody who, some big well-known podcast, I forget which one,
Yeah.
and they said that they were throwing 1 out of 5 on the floor, like one out
Wow.
of every 5. Like they do the whole interview all the way through, press stop, that was great but not good enough, and then it goes on the cutting room floor, and they're not releasing those just because they don't rise to the level of of what they wanted, not so much what they wanted the show to be, but the point they were making was that, like, and even I've said this, we don't need any more episodes. We do not need to hear Craig talk to anybody ever again. We got millions of these things. So don't make one unless you have a reason for making it. So what their point was like, well, that one was good, but it didn't need to see the light of day. So like, let's only put out the really, really good ones. And I think there's that as podcasters, we're doing the right thing by thinking about our audience. Like, what would the outro really be? Like, what's the appropriate one for this episode? How do I write? Because we spend tons of time. How do we write a title for an episode show? What's the description for our whole, show itself? And all these things we put all this time into, and you're operating in an echo chamber. No, you get almost no feedback.
Right.
And you and I had mentioned in the beginning, you were talking about the experience of the end consumer of the podcast show, and what it's like, because we've all done this, what it's like to, like, what would be the story that would make them press play on my episode number 11? Like, what is that experience for those people? So I'm wondering, like, what your thoughts are on things that you do after having thought about what those, we'll call those vanilla, never seen your show, they don't know anything about you. It's like, virgin territory people. Anything that you've done or thought about differently, having tried to put yourself in that vanilla person's shoes?
Yeah, I have been thinking about this a lot lately, Craig. It's the what is a person going to search for? What's the, I hate to use that word, keyword, or something like that. But a lot of the podcasts I really enjoy, kind of weekly, or they have some sort of value to them. There might be like I'm really into like this one called the Mac Power Users, and they talk about tips for your Apple devices and things like that. And there's always two or three things I jot down and learn from that episode. And that's I was really focused on that concept when I started back in Pod 7, where you and I met. And I thought that's what I should be doing. Every episode should have these three tips, so that no matter who listens to it, they're going to get something out of it. And I was focused on my mom listening to it, and she's like, she hates her computer. Like,
My mom unsubscribed from my show.
Oh, she did? That's
She
that's
gave up
hilarious.
She gave up in the 30s.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, sorry.
That's kind of funny, but well,
it's harsh.
Sorry. I hope you guys still have dinners together once in a while or something, but
we do. We don't talk about it.
Oh my gosh.
I derailed your train of thought. Sorry.
That's okay. But I was really focused on that whole, I've got to have these things, and I'll put it in my weekly blog, and it's in an email. You can click on these three hard facts that will help you through the day with your updating your apps and things like that, whatever it is. And then I had just started having fun with some interviews, and it just started turning into like conversations with musician friends, and we would dabble on the tech stuff, and that's always going to be there. But now I'm like rethinking it a few months later, as I think I do want to have some sort of consistency with a tip or two with each episode. Maybe it's at the end of the episode, because I think that really helps a stranger to the podcast, where they say, oh, wow, there's something I kind of learned at the end that I didn't know anything about. And I know that you can't just do that very succinctly every episode, or
cook
whatever.
That out. Yeah, we're gonna cook this down every time. It works perfectly. Not
exactly, but it's been interesting to just kind of. I'm thinking of, like, even my title, Hear Me Pod. It's HEAR instead of HERE, and because it's like, I think you could hear it both ways, but once you see the logo with my upright bass, it's like a silhouette. And then they're, oh, this is a music podcast. That's all he's going to talk about is music. And so I don't know, my identity is getting stirred up and thrown around again. And it's kind of fun, actually. It's exciting to rethink it as more of a value added type podcast, if that makes sense.
I've often wondered about, we're all, and this might be a false dichotomy, but we all seem to be forced into deciding, okay, should my artwork be like attractive, in the sense that somebody who knows no clue what the show is, they're going to like, ooh, what's that? Like, are they going to click on it for the artistic visual part of it? Or is my artwork supposed to be branding? And of course, the designers of the world are about to hit me over the head, go, it can do both. I'm like, great, you want to work for $5? Like, it doesn't happen. So we're like forced to choose with artwork. We're forced to choose with the title of our show. Like, Movers
Right.
Mindset is really vague, but it fits what I'm doing, as opposed to being the really clear thing that people want to click on. And every one of our episode titles, the royal we, every one of all of our episode titles, it's like, yeah, should it be explanatory for people who know what the deal is, or should it just be like buzzword worthy that it shows up in searches and our descriptions and our episode notes? Everything is like that. And in a way, I get sick and tired of bouncing back and forth between, well, what would be the right title for the people that I know are listening to my show? What would be the right title for the people that might stumble upon it?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts or if you have any insights into, how, like, if you're forced to say, craft a title for episode 14, like, what do you draw upon to decide what makes the cut for being in the title?
Interesting. Because my current set of titles are just names of the person I'm interviewing, which works,
I do that.
and there's maybe a little description in the show notes of what they do and where they're from. But having rethinking some of this concept of what it's about and who's it for, I've been thinking about, I could do a few hosts on my episodes. I could switch it up. There's a podcast I really enjoy called the Working Musician Podcast. I think it is anyway. Pretty cool logo. It looks like one of those road work signs, and it just says the Working Musician.
Instead of a shovel, it's a guy with a bass or something.
Yeah, exactly. And he recently did that, where he usually has a guest, but then there's been a couple where he was talking about like music licensing and royalties and how confusing it is with streaming and stuff like that. And it was a short episode, maybe 12, 13 minutes. And it was great. And and after I stopped listening to it, he's got a couple hundred episodes now. I was like, oh, he didn't have a guest. It was like, it took me to the end of the episode to go,
It's a
he
really
doesn't
long
even have
intro.
right. And I think, like, I know a lot of people, they have like two hot podcasts. They might have one featuring guests, and then they might have one that's a host on mic style. And then I was just thinking, well, I guess I can do both on the same podcast. I don't have to create a new podcast and a new
Right.
website and all that. And I think just having that freedom of thought to do that is pretty cool. And I didn't have that a few months ago. I thought, oh, I have to have, because there's so many people, I mean, you included, that really just, you have your shit together so well. And it's like, and I'm
Let me
going,
pivot my camera so you can see how not together. I'm just but I know what you mean. It looks like I should know what I'm doing. Yes.
no, you've been great. And I mean, it's so inspiring and then intimidating too. And I know you're not trying to intimidate me, but it's like I click on some of your stuff and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for a walk.
I'm sorry.
I can't catch up to this guy. But it's
always
all
somebody in front of you. There's always somebody, like, if I'm doing episode 12, there's 14 out there. There's always people ahead.
yes. And you're very humble, and I appreciate that. And I think you said something on another chat we were on where you just said, I've been doing this for a while, guys. And it was just like, oh yeah, okay, thanks. I needed to hear that.
Yeah. Not my first day on the rodeo. Not the first microphone I've spit on, for crying out loud.
Get that Lysol
Yeah.
spray. This episode is brought to you by Lysol.
No, it's not. I hate commercials. I don't
do
want to
too.
put commercials in my stuff. That's a whole nother thing about. Oh, anyway.
We
Yeah.
can talk about that too. That's an interesting. That's it. I would love to touch on that, like Anchor.
Go wherever you want to go.
The Spotify freebie thing seems a little like they're pushing advertising, right? Is that that kind of their game?
Yeah, I guess. So I'm not a musician by trade, or even by attempted smacking on keys or anything, but I have read the licensing agreements. So like I have several podcasts, and the biggest one is Movers Mindset, and it's not available on Spotify because I read the license. And one of the items that everybody ignores is the non-revocable, in perpetuity license to create derivative works. Wait, what? I'm like, excuse me? That's basically, you get to have my stuff. That's literally what that says. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care if that, maybe every record label in the world has that same clause in there. I don't know. But I'm like, no, I'm spending non-trivial amounts of money making that particular show. traveling all over the place, working really hard. And well, I didn't set out to try and make a buck. So if people can't hear it on Spotify, does that really matter? I mean, the people who really want to hear it. So, we mentioned before about how do people find your show. I
Right.
personally believe the show that I'm creating, this one that you and I are literally doing, is actually very different. But for Movers Mindset, people find a specific episode. They're looking for, because it's like 100 different human beings. They're looking for a particular person, and they find that one person and they go, who's this Craig guy? Shut up and get to the part where the other person talks. And that's what they want to hear. And that's great. That's what it's supposed to do.
Right.
So they find it. They don't go like, oh, it's not on Spotify. They're just like, I got it. Press play. Like that. To me, that's what's awesome about podcasting is the medium is still so open in terms of like internet interoperability. So I tend to, for that big show, I tend to ignore the audience and just focus on, well, what's the best thing I can create with Tyler today? Like what can we talk about? And I know there are people who will be interested in listening to us talk about audience. So I'm not going to worry about, can I get an ad in it or can I get it in this? Did I put this show on Spotify? I think I put this show on Spotify.
That's
Like,
funny.
I can't remember. Well, I was like, yeah, but the point of this is it's small and it's lightweight and the conversations are much more off the cuff and we're not editing them. So
Yeah.
yeah, Greg
That's
off on a tangent.
no, that's cool. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't want to if you spent like 8 months in Europe researching and doing like a 12 episode
I'm not that bad.
presentation. I'm
I
going to
did
put it
spend
on Spotify.
8 days in London, but no. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that though. And I'm all about that, like making sure you understand the rights
Yeah.
you have with your
Well,
material.
and what did you go into this for? Like if you're just on a podcast for fun, then yeah, whatever. You like Spotify's not going to steal your work.
Right.
But yeah.
But yeah, getting back to the audience though, yeah, it's very interesting when you do like a Google search for a topic and then there is a podcast that comes up with that subject you want to learn about or something,
Yeah.
and then you just click on that. And,
Have you had any surprises with audience? I'm sure if I asked that in the context of live shows, yes. But have you had any surprises related to audience around your podcast? How long have you been podcasting? So that's like over a year now. If you were in Pod 7, right?
It's been about 5 months. Yeah, it's Pod 7 was in
I can't remember.
February, I think we started, and then I published a couple episodes and took a couple months off, and then I'm just getting
So
back into
somewhere
a
between
flow.
6 months to a year. And
Yeah.
have you been surprised, like things out of the back catalog? Like, oh, I'm working on episode 17, and somebody who just heard episode 2 for the first time somehow interacted with you. Like any like those long distance, long tail surprises.
Not too many. I once in a while I'll get an email like, well, I'll talk about my mom again. She actually said she's like, I really enjoyed that last episode, and I spent a long time editing it. It was our episode 2 episodes ago, I think it was. Anyway, she was just catching up on some of my episodes recently. She said, I really enjoyed that episode, and I was like, that. She said it was her favorite, and I was like, how could that be your favorite? Because I enjoyed these other 2 or 3 much more than that one.
Yeah.
And it was interesting that she said that, because I was like, well, what did she like about it? Because I had to really edit that one a lot because we were having a lot of technical issues with Zoom and delays and bleeps and blurps, but the content's great and it was a wonderful conversation. So, it'll be interesting though to hear from older friends or people from all over the world that do pick up an older episode and say, hey, I didn't know you interviewed that guy or that girl, and that's really cool. And
Yeah.
so that is exciting to think about
Do you, when you're talking with someone, I always like to use the word conversation. So you're having a conversation with someone that you're recording. Are you thinking about imaginary audience members in real time? Do you try and juggle that as you're talking?
I am now a little bit more, where I'm just like, okay, if I say this thing, am I giving enough context? That's really hangs me up sometimes. And I try to put things in the show notes. Oh, by the way, the reference of this weird gag is here, and here's a link to that silly thing we did. And but it's always like, it's something you're just wanting, because right now I know it's mainly friends and family, and they know most of the people know each other that I'm interviewing, and so but moving forward, I do want to think about that more deliberately, where it's like, yes, this is a person that's like this, and it's clear, and I have it clearly laid out in the intro, and here you go.
Hmm.
But
I'm thinking about introductions of guests and episode text that you write. So I tell everybody on this particular show, this is a street racer. There's no doors, there's no seatbelts. There's nothing. But Mover's Mindset is massively overproduced the other way. We write a very particular type of summary of the episode. We have a hook sentence that's specially crafted dead last. Is the last thing we do. There's a biography of each guest, which the guest reviews in advance, and we like co-create. That is like this massive amount of work to make, like, I don't know, it's about 150 words of labor of love. And then I read that in as the introduction. And I'm just wondering, do you put a lot of effort into crafting like the introductions that you're tracking, or is it just, okay, I really need 3 items, so you're just more like trying to hit a checklist, or do you like get lost in the rabbit hole of how do I put a bow on this episode so that when people find it, it looks perfectly packaged?
I don't give it much thought. Actually, I give maybe 2 or 3 points at the beginning for an intro, and just here you go. Hope you want it. Hope you want to listen. Hope you don't push stop yet.
Yeah, it's like the Gong Show. There's a dated reference.
Oh
Don't
my
push.
god!
Oh well.
Don't
All right,
push
Tyler. Well,
stop.
hopefully people haven't pressed stop and they've heard us all the way to the end. But yeah, it's a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you. I know I've seen you around. I'll be seeing you around again. It's always fun. But I'm glad we finally got a chance to record and co-create something. So thank you very much for talking about audience.
Thank you, Craig. This was a lot of fun.